Hey everybody. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Jason Hardy with Elite Barbecue Smokers, and this is the Barbecue Roundtable. We're going to let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll get into it. This will be a great conversation, so let's go. Mr. Jamie, you up top left. Let you introduce yourself, start with.
I'm Jamie Thomas from Burnsville, North Carolina, team Char-Cole Grillers, do SDA and barbecue.
Mr. Shannon.
Shannon Graham, Dang Good Barbecue from Glencoe, Alabama. We've been competing since 2008.
Cool.
And Hound, Hogs Barbecue Supply, Carrollton, Georgia. A little bit of everything, I guess, you know.
And Mr. Gene.
Yep, I'm Gene Skillin. I live in Huntsville, Alabama. Started cooking competitive barbecue about 2010. Always been a backyard cook. Found steak about 2016, I guess.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
And Mr. Hollis, you're the one that's important down there, so introduce yourself.
I'm Hollis Holt, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Now, who's your daddy?
And I'm 7.
You 7? Now, who's your daddy?
Justin Holt.
What's y'all's team's name?
Holt Brothers Barbecue.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Well, Mr. Holt, we're going to let you kind of start the show here, and I'll let you kind of show off what you've got here and talk about it.
Right.
So here, you got front center stage here, so let's introduce you, and you tell us kind of what all you done this weekend.
Grab your trophy. All right, tell them what you did.
So, I
Where'd you cook at?
New York strip.
I cooked the New York strip, and I cooked it on PK, and
You remember what you used?
yeah, and I used Steak Princess seasoning and DB 180 seasoning.
And what place did you finish?
And I finished the first.
Awesome. Was that your first place finish in a competition?
Yeah.
Yep. In a state competition, right?
Yeah.
Yep. How many other kids were competing?
5, and then me.
And then you said 6 total?
Yeah, 6 total.
Do you remember what your score was?
Yes. It was 200.
Nope. 148.5.
148.5.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is a really good score.
Yeah.
Especially for a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
How did it feel cooking a steak instead of doing a pork chop, which is normally what you cook at a kids' queue?
It was way better.
Way better, yeah. It was a lot more fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It looked cooler, you thought?
Yeah.
Yep.
You had good grill marks on it and everything?
Yeah.
It looked pro. Now, I'll tell you something funny that he did. I had it all set up. We had pins in it.
And this is from the practice one.
Yep, and I showed him, all right, you got to lay it just like this on the grill. He got up there, and I mean, it was blazing hot. We cook at 600 degrees, and he got up there, and he just kind of tossed it like a football onto the grill grates. Yeah. So we had to work a little more strategic on the flips to get it repair, right? But that was our practice steak, so we cooked 2. Yeah. And you turned in your second one, right? You were happy with that one.
Yeah.
Yep. Do you?
And also for the inside of the practice, it was very good. It was a very good 10.
Yep. You felt like it was a perfect medium.
Yeah.
Yep. How much money did you win?
$150.
How much have you spent already of the money?
Only I've spent 100 only for Robux.
So he's right on track to be a perfect barbecue competitor because he already had it spent before we left.
And the $50 is just for things outside Roblox that I can spend at stores.
Cool.
Like fuel?
And rent.
Fuel
Y'all
and
charge your kids rent? You're supposed to charge your children rent, right?
And then I also purchase it for farts.
That's awesome.
Fart cans.
Well, cool, buddy. Daddy's real proud of you. And I think everybody else at the contest was very happy to see you get your first place, right?
Yeah.
And what is it now? Time for
What time?
bedtime. That's right.
I want to
Because
stay up for 10
you got
minutes.
you got school tomorrow. So let's
I
head
want
on.
to stay up.
Tell
for
everybody
10
bye.
Bye.
And hope you have a good show, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to win the next one?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. High five. All right, head on back
Congratulations,
upstairs.
Hollis.
I do the exact same thing except for that throw.
Okay. Good job. Okay, bye.
All I'm saying is I witnessed that football.
Hey, that's about the same technique I use when I do grills too. Is I just throw them on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, firsthand.
That's why you won that belt this weekend. Who needs strategy? Just drop it on there. He said, "Daddy, it was hot." And I said, "Well, I can't argue with that." You're exactly right. I've had a lot of proud dad moments, but that was definitely one of the best. And I think the coolest part was hearing everybody behind me yelling his name, and that made me pretty proud too. He enjoys his barbecue friends, as he calls them, at contests. So thanks to all y'all for cheering him on. That made his weekend for sure. And I'm not kidding. He spent $100 just like that. Said, yep, you're a barbecue pro, man. You already spent the money before you even got back to the trailer.
Lord have mercy.
Yep,
That's pretty cool. Well, congratulations. I know you was proud for that.
I was proud. Yep, thank you.
So
Hey,
kind of one
Justin,
of the
that
parts.
proud dad moment doesn't ever go away, especially when he gets old enough and starts doing big boy steak and adult steak too. He'll do well there, and that moment gets even better.
That's one of the things I noticed this weekend too, was that he's competed with me now for 3 years, and he's kind of been into it. He gets bored and goes back in and gets on his computer. He didn't do none of that this weekend. He wanted to be involved in every single thing that we cooked, and he was asking tons of questions. And he wanted to help me with my steaks, and he wanted to know when the ribs were coming off and when we were going to wrap them. And I was like, yeah, he's really starting to enjoy the whole experience and not just being there. And I'm soaking it up too, because pretty soon he's going to be a teenager and he's not going to want to do anything or ride his bike around like Jamie's kid does.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Mine were 8 and 10 when we started cooking competitive barbecue, and my oldest is now 22, and he's doing SCA and has won
That's
and has
cool.
gotten his ticket and cooked a couple times. So yeah, he'll stick with it if it's fun, and that's the important thing about it is making it fun. They'll stick with it.
Yep. Well, fingers
Success
crossed.
has a lot to do with that too.
He also told me when he turns 16, he's starting his own team and he's going to beat me. And he was none too happy that he got a 148.5 and my best steak was a 149 this weekend. He said, "Oh, you beat me by half a point. Dadgummit." And I said, "You are a competitor, man. You got that taste for blood, man."
That's cool. Congratulations. So Jamie, tell us a little bit how you got into. Well, before you doing this competition side of it, tell us a little bit how you got the passion for cooking just in general.
Let's see, probably back in 2019, that's when we did our first SCA comp. I was watching Cosmos Q YouTube videos. I didn't know SCA was a thing. I was trying to learn how to smoke ribs, and I come across this SCA video. I was like, yeah, that looks pretty cool. So I went online, tried to find a competition in my area. Tried to give myself about 6 months, to buy everything that I needed and get going, and did a little practice and did our first one. I think we finished 11th place in our very first one, and after that we were hooked.
As Jason and I always say, it's your most expensive call.
Yes.
The first one.
But did you grow up cooking like at a hunting club with friends, or is it just something you kind of got older and just wanted to learn how to cook, and that's where
Yeah, just got older. Just something that I wanted to do.
That's pretty cool.
Interesting, yeah.
Mr. Shannon, how about you?
Probably I was about 25, I guess, at the time, which was 2005. Saw a show on TV about barbecue, decided I was going to go out in the shop, build me a smoker. I was a mechanic welder at the time, so I went out and built me one. I played with it for a little while, decided to first competition in 2008, I think, and got a first place rib call. and it's just spiraled out of control after that, cooking barbecue for years. And I'm going to say 2019, we got into the SCA a little bit. My wife entered the first contest, I think, that she looked it up, got interested. And she's cooked most of the steaks. Occasionally she lets me cook. But that's kind of how we got started, just on a whim. I wanted to learn how to cook barbecue. So,
hey man, it's crazy how all these different stories, but a lot of them relate back to a YouTube or to barbecue pitmaster shows and stuff.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
right.
Yeah, that started a lot of people's journey into their most expensive hobby probably they've ever had.
Yep.
Yeah, the little barbecue grill and a TV show is, who knows how much money that's cost in my lifetime, and one trophy to get started. But it's you build a family out there, and I got closer family in the barbecue world than I do in some parts of my own family. So that's what it's all about. When we get done barbecuing, you still have friends and family for a lifetime through this.
Yep.
Yeah, it does make us. It's crazy how we miss the people more than we do miss the competition to some degree.
Absolutely, we do.
To the other degree, we're all A personalities, competitive people, so it'd be kind of hard not to compete and just hang out with each other on the weekends.
Yep.
That would be crazy.
Second that all the way.
Blake, how about you?
I guess I found the Pitmaster shows in YouTube a little late. Somebody just gave me a Masterbuilt electric smoker, and it sat on my deck for 6 months before I used it, and then started using it. And I didn't really come from a cooking family, so I didn't really know what I was doing. But I got one good chicken quarter that tasted so good, I just had to do something else. And next thing you know, I got a Weber kettle, then I got a Performer, and then I get a Hasty Bake or this or that. It just kind of spiraled from there. And then I'm a guy, I do barbecue more for the social aspect of it than the competition side. I like going out with my buddies and, having a weekend. That's kind of why we started it. And we did a barbecue contest. And this was, I guess, September of 2019. I did a SCA there as well. Got a 12th place call out of like 40 people. I felt great, By the time we got ready to do our second one, everything was shutting down for COVID. And then we started hitting the SCA trail about May. And ever since then, we started finding some success, made some real friends there. And that's been our focus. We still bounce back and forth. But, one barbecue contest is like 4 or 5 SCA contests. So you got to work.
Yeah. That's exactly
that's
true. A little bit cheaper. Not a whole lot, but
Well, it's
somewhat.
certainly not a whole lot cheaper when your wife gets into it. Now you're paying double entry fees, all that kind of stuff. We're getting ready to add Brantley to the kids' queue, so now it's going up even more.
Yep.
Yeah, you know how it is.
I do. I had to count too this weekend. You had 40 Hasty Bake grills going out there, or was it 42? I'm just joking.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, he had.
I realized I had that many Hasty Bake grills laying around me. I mean, some of them weren't mine; they were my friends. But I got it out there, and I was like, "Dang, if this don't look like
man.
Expo, I don't know what does."
Yep, it was a Hasty Bake Barbecue Expo at the Hound Hogs tent over there. I was jealous though. I was like, man, he's got the setup going on here.
Yeah, I love it.
It's pretty cool. Mr. Gene, how about you?
I guess I'm the different one and the oddball in the group. We've always been cooking. My mom's a kind of a throw it together kind of cook, and I grew up big in 4-H, big in FFA, showing livestock, and I remember having a whole hog backyard cook when we were in high school, and always doing that. I actually majored in animal dairy science and worked in the feed industry for about 10 years before I got out of it. So we've always cooked, always grilled. Probably got into more smoking about 2005, I guess. Bought a Big Green Egg. Friend had one. As it goes, usually one person gets one and some other folks will buy them. We started smoking, but one of the guys who worked for corporate Big Green Egg also did competition barbecue. And so got connected and hooked up with them in Atlanta and started kind of shadowing a couple comps, and then jumped in my first one about 2010 and had a really good time. Did barbecue till about 2015, 16, and then we moved from Alabama down to Florida and didn't really do a lot of barbecue there. Found SCA, and first time I saw it, I'm almost embarrassed to say I kind of shunned it a little bit. I'm like, what are these guys doing steak? We do barbecue, we don't do steak. And didn't do a lot of barbecue at all there, and found an SCA comp, jumped in it, entered, and have had a blast, and we haven't looked back. We've done a few barbecue cooks, but I can't always remember a time when we didn't cook.
That's very cool.
That's
And
pretty
Gene's
cool.
a little bit different too than a lot of SCA cooks. You're using green eggs still? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm still using ceramic cookers. Yeah, Randy McKnight is. There's a few teams that'll use variation, whether it's Primo or the little Acorns. But yeah, I use Big Green Eggs. Use two the little mini max sizes for comps.
That's cool. And also probably scary traveling with those. I remember
they're not bad. I had a cart made for them so I can haul them, but every now and then a little component will crack. I've got to pull a warranty on. But they've been good to us about that. I've not had any problems getting what I need.
one of the first comps we ever did, my brother and I, little church comp here, our hometown, and a guy had the biggest damn egg I've ever seen in my life, and was gathering help at the end of the contest to lift it up into the bed of his pickup truck. And I was like, I can't watch. Like, I'm terrified for this guy right now. I could just see it just,
We hauled, when we did barbecue, we hauled some larges around, and I bought a backyard Jambo smoker and had a trailer built, mounted it on, and an extra large egg. And that's what we did barbecue comps on.
Wow.
For a while before we got out of it.
That's a cool setup.
So where's everybody from? Kind of for people that don't know you and your teams and stuff here, where's everybody from now? I know Jamie said he's North Carolina. Shannon, where do you say you're from? If I might have missed that, sorry.
From North Alabama. I'm about 75 miles south of Gene, just right outside of Gadsden. So North Alabama.
Mr. Blake, how about you?
Yeah, you go about an hour east from Shannon, and there I am in Carrollton, Georgia, right on the Georgia-Alabama line. So,
Okay. And Gene, you say you were in Florida now?
And I'm in North. No, we're in Alabama. So I grew up in Florida. We've been all over. We've been Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, back to Florida, back to Alabama. So we live in Huntsville, very North Alabama, right on the Tennessee border.
Okay. It's a pretty part of the country out there. I tell you.
And Shannon, you said you guys did a lot of backyard, right?
We still cook.
Yeah.
We still cook backyard barbecue at KCBS. We cook a few pro contests a year in KCBS, and cook completely pro in GBA, FBA, MBN contests.
Alabama has a very large backyard group, I guess you can say. Probably one of the biggest states of backyard KCBS teams in the nation.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. There's Gene probably kept better than I can, but 35 or 40 backyard teams just in North Alabama for Birmingham North.
That's nuts.
And a lot that have converted to pro and been very successful. I always like to say that the backyard comps in Alabama, they're not any less competitive. We just cooked one less meat.
Yeah.
There are some very good Alabama cooks.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's
for our backyard comps too. So.
Well, you know,
in fact, I see
about
Tim Swine on here. He's made a couple comments. Tim's one of them that's up here that's a phenomenal cook.
That's awesome.
And that's the thing we talked about last week whenever Charles was on here about the difference between the two. It's not that. No, it's not different because it's judged by the same judges.
Yep.
It's just cooking basically 3 meats and 4 meats because there's really no other difference between the two of them other than you're just not cooking either 2 meats or 3 meats, but you're not usually cooking a brisket.
So the difference is, do you want to be tired at the end or really tired at the end of the contest? To add another 30, 45 minutes on there?
For us, it was having 2 young boys. My cooking partner had 2 young boys, and it was less money on the weekend that we might lose. We always went into it hoping we'd break even, but
Yeah.
it was less that we would lose.
That's another thing we talked about last weekend is the cost of brisket a big barrier for teams getting into barbecue these days. It's a tough one. And I think that's a big appeal for
Used to not be, but it is.
people that want to compete, and with the broadening range of the SCA, and I think they're doing a really good job getting exposure and the word out there that there's comps all over the nation and all over the world, really, that's a great way to get your foot wet in any type of food competitive sport is steak. What you got to bring: a spatula, a grill, some rubs, some charcoal. That's it. Don't have to bring the steaks.
Steak is a great opportunity for a family to cook most of the time too. It's hard to do it in barbecue because of the length of time you cook, but SCA is really oriented to husband and wife cooking, like your son cooking, family atmosphere. Gene's, like you said, he's always had his sons cooking with him in the SCA, so that's a big part of it. That if you have a younger child or a wife that's even interested in it, it's a perfect spot to start.
Yeah, and I do notice that a lot too, from the difference in KCBS is a lot of just old fat guys like me, and we're by ourselves, or just got one person with us at all these SCA contests. I mean, y'all are competing, your wives are competing, your kids are there. They're going to do kids Q, sometimes an ancillary as well, depending on their age. It is a lot different, and I would agree with you that it's definitely a family-oriented food sport. Like Blake, you had all your kids out there this weekend. Your wife competed too. She did chili, is that right?
Yeah, we had. She did the open. She did chili.
That's awesome.
Ribs. I did the championship. Kids out awards. I had like 3 or 4 friends cooking with me, like local friends. So. Yeah, it definitely, and we were packed out in there, but we made it work.
I know. I walked by at one point. I was like, damn, Blake's got a party going on over here, man.
Well,
awesome.
When you get in your hometown and you're everybody just comes to hang out. And so I ended up with like 10 people. They done took all my chairs. I got nowhere to sit. And, they're just sitting there not doing anything but watching.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Blake, why don't you start off and tell us about this past weekend and what you did?
Yeah, so for the past 2 years, we've been doing the Georgia State Championship State Cook-Off for SCA. It really started out wanting to find a way to kind of incentivize more cooks to do SCA in Georgia. It was inspired by Alabama. I don't, have any issue with saying, hey, I took what Alabama was doing and said, let's do it in Georgia. It wasn't my original idea. But, even this year we did a points race, just trying to encourage more people to cook in Georgia and give them something to look forward to. I think over time it's getting a better reputation. And for some reason, there's a dead spot. When you get north of Macon, the rest of Georgia, until you get like way north, is just like a dead zone. Especially for SCAs. And so we're just trying to grow the sport here because I know Alabama's got such a good group. Because again, that's our primary place we compete, just because I'm literally 20 minutes from Alabama where I'm now. And so I want to see that kind of culture here in Georgia. So we started that championship, and then this past week was our second one. I think it went great.
Very cool. How'd you place?
Well, in ribs, I did great. I don't know if we want to talk about steak, but in ribs, me and Jamie, we tied. And of course, I promise you, I thought those were the most terrible ribs. You can ask Craig Johnson. He was standing right behind me in the line. I was like, I don't even know why I'm turning these things in.
I told my wife the same exact thing.
Well, they're over tender, but I think they probably tightened up a little bit, from the time that I put them in the box. And I didn't have enough. I had one rack that was over tender, one rack that was under tender, and I tried to hide 2 bones just to get the right amount towards the back. So I think, my box placement probably helped me a little bit, but everything else was good. My steak, I think I got like 32nd or something out of like 37, which is crazy because I'm cooking the same recipe as Brianna, and she's like 12th and gets a 45 score of the whole contest. And she's, we're using the same recipe because we practiced together. She just got done. I'm sitting right next to my haste bag. It's still going. She just got done practicing. Same recipe, and she places 20 places, 25 places higher than I did.
Man.
I don't know how
Look
that
at
works.
the tables, man.
Yep. It's all
Look at the tables.
Well, and I had a perfect appearance and a perfect doneness score too. So, those are usually the ones that'll knock you out if you miss one here or there. But they killed me on texture and flavor for some reason.
Dang. And that's one thing you'll see too a lot in SCA versus other barbecue sport or sanctioning bodies is there's a lot of ties because the points are so close. And actually, if you look too from this weekend, there wasn't but maybe a 8-point difference between first and like 32nd, in Stake A. So like they're real close, but
those decimals and taste, I mean, that made the world of difference. Like me and Jamie, we tied unbreakable tie. Everything
unbreakable tie. That's what I was just about to say. There was nothing that you guys could do to break it.
We were 0.1 points away from a perfect score, which means one judge gave us a 10.8 instead of a 10.9. Now, what you have to do to earn a 10.9 over a 10.8, I don't know. But those decimals, they matter. And that's the thing in the SCA is it's, it's not weighted like the KCBS. I mean, taste is weighted a little bit more, but it's only 0.9 more. But that 0.1 that you get over somebody else can make or break you in that.
Yep. Well, Jamie, tell us about how you liked the weekend and how you did.
Oh, we did great. It was a great weekend. I think in Chile, I finished 11th, just outside of the top 10. Stake A, I believe I finished 20th, 21st. And, of course, tied with Blake, first place on ribs, and finished 4th in the championship round.
That's awesome. What was your score in the championship round?
I can't remember.
It had to be high.
It was up there, yes, 250 something.
Awesome. Very cool. I poked my head in Jamie's trailer as I was taking my ribs in, and his had a much prettier color than mine did. I got a little dark on me. There's just a lot going on, I'm used to my timeline for KCBS, and I was like, man,
it was a 251.9.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah,
I got mine off, and I was like, these taste good, but they look pretty dark. I don't know if these judges are gonna dig mine. I think mine were 15th, maybe, which maybe I was wrong on that. Maybe we were 11th, but we were right there. Still pretty good. Shannon, how about your weekend?
I just on a whim decided to cook the open round, and I didn't even think I was qualified. The Blake corrected me. I forgot I'd qualified in Griffin, Georgia at a GBA event. So Christy had signed up for the open and the championship. So I just took her open spot and I cooked. So I just turned in a decent steak. I just knew I needed to make a big show. So had no idea I cooked the first place steak.
Sweet.
So it turned out well. And 8th place in the championships where I finished at. And I'm just like Blake, but me and Christy swapped places. She was about 15 or 18 places behind me on that, and cooked identical steaks on the same grill and everything identical about it. So
Jeez.
You just don't know.
Jason and I know that dance well, don't we?
Barbecue bingo, boys and girls. Barbecue bingo.
That's exactly what it is. And I did compete in. We cooked the shed the weekend before, and then we cooked in FBA in St. Augustine the week before that. So I skipped ribs and just eat ribs and talked ribs for hours.
Nice.
I was listening to Gene yesterday, and he talked about his recipe hadn't changed a whole lot in 3 years. Mine hadn't changed a whole lot since I started taking walks. It's been a couple years now, and I actually changed it and started doing worse and went back to what I was doing.
Uh-oh.
So I went back to my old recipe. I won. And then I had a judge. Now, this judge is a great guy. Nothing bad on him. But he came up to me afterwards and apologized to me. And I was like, "What are you apologizing to me for?" He owned up to it. He didn't have to. But he said, look, he said, I was like 0.4 away from a perfect score. He said, I'm the reason you didn't get a perfect score.
Oh, Lord.
Giving you a perfect score, and I apologize. You know, but the same recipe that I scored a 49.6 on this weekend, you know, with the same layers of rubs and the same process and everything. So
Wow.
It's definitely hit or miss out there. But, you know, those tables, and I've seen them, they try to balance those tables really well with how many contests you've judged and this, that, and the other. You can't prevent those tables from being wildly different.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going through some of the same stuff that I personally believe KCBS is going through? I know last year, beginning of well, let's back up. Let's say 2021, we were cooking some contests and kind of had it dialed in for our flavor profile where we were won a few contests and we were doing pretty good. And then last year hit, and the first part of the year we come out the gate and we kind of was hitting a stride, doing pretty good. But about middle of the year, it just kind of completely flipped on us. And I personally think that about the middle of the year last year, COVID kind of got to be a back thought to everybody. And some of the older judges come back out and judges, and some new judges that's been judging through the COVID years, gas went up, so they're not coming back out and judging. And the flavor profile kind of twisted up on us. Y'all think maybe that's what's happening to SCA also?
I hadn't thought that deeply about it yet. You know, we don't have 20-year judges, you know, in the SCA at this point. I did see some older judges that I hadn't seen in a while the other day, but I'm not sure exactly how much that affected everything.
And I'm not picking on older judges, and I shouldn't have probably said older judges, but I should have said those that were stayed in due to COVID, and then those that were coming out, and then all of a sudden now they're coming back out judging. So I wasn't trying to put a hit on any older judges, and I'm not trying to pick on you because we really need you as KCBS, SCA. We still need you judging, so I'm not trying to pick on it. We're just trying to figure out the flavor profile so that we know what to serve next week.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's my thought process. Y'all might disagree with that.
I don't never know what to serve. That's for sure.
Well, I think, you know, I mean, it's a valid point. The majority of judges are retired people anyways, you know, so,
yeah,
you know, and that's the age group that was most worried about COVID. And so it makes sense, but I guess we'll see what that looks like, you know, over the coming months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Gene, you're up. Why don't you tell us about your stupendous weekend?
Yeah, can I go back and kind of chime in on what we were just talking about with judges?
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think there's some difference in the different organizations between barbecue and steak. One of the big differences with steak is you don't have a drop score, and in barbecue you do, right? So that lowest scores get dropped. So you're stuck with all five in steak, even if you've got the same judges between A and B. I know for steak they make a point. If it's the identical judges, they get up and move them around and they reset them at new tables.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mix is different. And so there's a lot of factors. And then there are, and I hate to throw out stereotypes, but there are stereotypes of judges too. You know, there's conversations around, do certain folks handle spicy food different than other folks? Do people who and I'm just going to say it the way I think it, do people who smoke more have maybe an ability to handle more smoke in a meat than somebody who doesn't smoke, because the flavors are going to be different with your taste buds and what you perceive as a smokiness. You know, a lot of different things there can affect week to week, location to location. And my approach has always been the same flavors, the same cooking technique, the same style week to week. And Rolf Garrett is one of the great cooks over in Maryland. Rolf said a quote one time that said, you've got to be prepared to be lucky. So you hit the same metric, the same time every week. So when those tables do line up just right, you get rewarded for it. And I've taught my son as he's come into cooking that there are days in steak that you're going to get that extra point or two, you know, grace, where the judge gives you the benefit of the doubt. And there's going to be weeks you don't get it. And just like you talked about, Blake did with his wife finishing so far apart. We were at a comp last year in Tennessee for steak that was a double. I happened to have 2 top 10 calls. Graham finished, I think, 11th or 12th on one of his steaks, and the other, he was second from last. So we had 3 top 15s, if you want to call it that, and then one almost last on exact same flavor, exact same doneness, same kind of steaks.
Crazy.
Some days I just chalk up and go, it wasn't our week, and we'll hit it next week. We'll keep doing the same thing we're doing. And you asked how we did this week. It lined up. This was the first place belt that Blake worked together, and they man, it was a fantastic belt. Beautiful laminated trophies, and we were fortunate enough to win first in the championship. And did not do ribs, didn't do chili. Don't do a lot of ancillary cooks. Occasionally I'll do them, but most of the time we're just a steak cook team, and that's kind of what we focus on. So
That's cool. Jason, how you like that as a trophy?
That's pretty wild, man.
We need more belts in KCBS, huh?
Yeah, that's. We talked about doing at one time doing the belts for some different stuff we're doing. We're doing more of the cowboy belt buckle style, and I think there'd be something other good to do that. But at the time we're doing the Rufus T series, and cost was a big factor into it, and we were just trying to find something other cool that could be a little less expensive. But those look cool. I mean, I want one put on the wall now. Thank you for that.
No, it's something a little different. A lot of barbecue guys know this, but man, that's a cool one too. Look at that.
That was awesome.
Yeah. In SCA, they have what they call a golden ticket, and that's if you either get first or you place somewhere within top 5, top 10, and the guys ahead of you, or the people that finished ahead of you, already have a golden ticket, and you can get. If I'm right, you can get 2 of them in a season, right? One for an ancillary and one for state. And that qualifies you for the big world championship, which happens every year in March in Fort Worth. And that kind of incentivizes the cooks, coming out at the beginning of the season, I would think, and really hunting for that at least state golden ticket so that you guys can, you can get your bid to get to Fort Worth. For each of y'all, is that your main goal when you first start the season, or are you hunting points, or both? Anybody answer? Doesn't matter.
They're less about points. I don't do any points chasing, that's for sure. Especially, I mean, we got a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 7-month-old. We're not traveling that far right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the golden ticket, I've never had an ancillary golden ticket because I don't really do them. And this is my first one from this past weekend. My wife's got one for this coming year. But yeah, that steak one, man, you get to the end of the year and you have a couple good finishes and you just so happen to have somebody beat you out for it. And it gets a little stressful there towards the end. Your chances go up of it getting rolled down to you, but man, I took a lot of flack for it taking me, 10 months and a year to get my golden ticket last year. So it's definitely a little stressful on that.
Yeah, the same way. I don't chase points. I can't get out and do it every weekend, but the golden ticket is definitely something that we try to get. Not so much in the earlier year, but once you get on towards the end of the year, it's more stressful if you don't have it.
Yeah.
So the question we had last week, which I'd love to kind of see this from an SCA perspective, is we were talking about last week about what makes you choose a competition. And this was talking about a little more towards the barbecue side of it, but from an SCA standpoint, what's something other that makes you say, I'm going to go to this contest over this contest? What would be the
add too? You'll find a lot of times there'll be 2 SCAs in a weekend that are pretty close to each other. But just because there's a lot out there, they're pretty easy for a promoter to put on. What goes into y'all's decision making weekend to weekend?
Mine's most of the time.
I'll answer.
Go ahead, Gene.
Go
ahead.
Shannon.
Most of the time, mine's for the calls or what money they're, what organization you're raising money for. We'll travel multiple states over for a good cause. Example, the Hope Landing Cook in Arkansas. That was a great contest to go out to. It's for disabled children, and every penny raised in that event is for those. So you get a lot of SCA legends cooking that contest. So it's got a big meaning. John Green, I think's daughter, Gene probably can answer that, I believe, is one of the workers there or helps promote that. So draws a big crowd, but every penny goes to a good cause, and that's what makes me go to an event most of the time.
Very cool.
That's Gene.
I agree with what Shannon said. The cause is a big one. Location is one. The one that Blake put on this weekend helped with fundraiser for veterans, which is always fantastic. And one of the things I liked that they did and was have a veteran also cook. And he happened to be in the compound area where we were cooking. His name was Billy, and he was set up with Mike McElwaney. So like to see that where folks are included. Sometimes it's a unique event. There's one in Missouri who we haven't been able to go to, but it's all indoors. Grills are supplied, and kind of equalizes a lot of things.
Wow.
Been some of those where the grills are provided, and that level sets some stuff. But you know, at the end of the day, a little bit of prize money kicks into it as well. The awards are cool. I love unique awards. I love this Georgia Championship wooden plaque and the belt, and I've got some cool ones, a steer head on a plaque, and we've got some barrel heads and some. I got a pecan log that's probably 3 feet tall that's put on a lathe and turned into a wooden trophy.
That's cool.
You know, and so unique events are with cool awards and cool designs are fun.
Jamie, what you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely the cause. Location is another big one for us. And, you know, around here, we usually have a lot of SCA cooks also promote, you know, like Blake and Jody Davis throws one on. And, you know, we like to support them as well. And trophies is another one. Like these ones we got this past weekend were awesome. So that's another thing that we enjoy.
Yeah, I
Mr.
think
Blake?
our biggest one is I mean, and here's what I kind of notice is, you know, I'm 28. I don't know if most people know that. I'm 8 years old. One of the youngest guys that I run across, you know, that's not cooking with their parents or something like that. And so it's hard, I think, for some younger folks to get into this. One, because people are getting financially established, and two, you got really young kids. It makes things real difficult. So, like for us, for me to go to Alabama, up until recently, you know, I may have to take Brantley and Nora to my parents' house, and my parents aren't the youngest people in the world, so I don't want to over ask from them, and so I got to be home that evening. And once I get to about that 3-hour mark of driving, it's dangerous for me. I start just falling asleep. You know, it don't even matter. You know, kind of don't matter how much caffeine I've had, I'm still going to start falling asleep. And so for us, it's location. We'd love to get to the point where we can really look at other things, but you know, we try to stay within 3.5 hours, which is why we, you know, hit a lot of Gadsden comps and Char-Cole and Huntsville and you know, Birmingham, and there's not a whole lot in Atlanta. We go to McDonough every year, but that's our biggest thing. And one of the reasons why we put on a contest is because if it wasn't for us, McDonough would only be basically the only contest that's not far northeast Georgia that's above Macon. So mostly distance, and cool trophies are fun too. We try to make sure that we have those. I appreciate the kind words about the trophies. I put my hands on a lot of those over the past couple weeks, so we definitely worked hard on them.
I don't know if you can see this, but this was our first SCA call ever. It was a 10th place, and it was at that railroad museum up closer to Atlanta.
Yeah,
and it's
Hey,
a
put
railroad.
in front of black shirt. Justin, put in front of black shirt.
Here you go. Yeah, and it's an old railroad spike, like a really old one. You know, like handmade and all that. They painted it and put a little thing on there, but it's simple, but it's cool. And every time Hollis sees it up here, he's like, "Oh yeah, that was from the train place," you know. And it gives you something to remember, you know, where the contest was and what it was about too. That's another thing Jason and I ask a lot of people on the barbecue side. You know, is it points? Is it the money? Or is it the trophy? And almost everybody says, "Oh man, it's always the trophies."
Even if it's a certificate, it's something.
Because, and I think like our buddy Scully said it. He's like, you could ask me how much money I won at a contest last year, and I can't tell you. But you can ask me what that trophy looked like, and I definitely can tell you, and I'm going to remember that.
Yep.
I think the money, like you said, the money's going
It
to draw some people
tells a
to look it
story
up.
on where you've been and what you've cooked and how you've gone. Both my boys, and I hate to talk over you. I'm sorry. I know I got about a second delay. Sorry
That's
about
okay.
that.
No, you go ahead.
But they're big patch collectors with scouts, and that tells a story about what they've done with their scouting career.
Yep.
And just like that, the awards we've done and what we win, you remember where you were, you remember the venue, the setup, you remember everything about the cook, really that day, but you don't always remember the check. Although I will remember the check this weekend. There are a few checks you do remember.
That was a good one for sure.
But you always remember the awards, and they always tell a story about what you've done.
Talking about the checks and awards and stuff here, Scully, talking about Circle Scully's Brian, he was always one of them guys that was saying he could never get a big check trophy. He was trying to cut these contests. He just wanted a big check trophy.
Gene?
And he never got a big check trophy until I think it was Royal Oak. I think he give him a big check trophy. But that was just funniest thing in the world. It's like probably one of the cheapest trophies out there, but people want to go for that big check trophy.
He had a place on this wall ready for it.
Yeah. It's
What
just
part
it's
of
crazy.
That is my kryptonite. That is 100% my kryptonite. If there's a cool award that I envy or drool over, I might as well just go home. I don't have a chance to win because I just envious over it. And I don't have. Shannon's got check trophies. I don't have a check trophy to my name. Probably never will because I want one so bad.
Blake, you said something about a 3.5 hour window or 3 hour window for driving. If I use that rule of thumb, I don't even think Greenwood's 3 hours from my house. I think it's 3.5 hours from the house.
Yeah,
I would never do a competition.
Yep.
Yeah,
you got some driving to do for sure to get anywhere.
And we're getting to a better place. As Brantley gets older, he came to Alabama with us a couple weeks ago. It's the first time we didn't have to be hands-on with him so much. And so I had a great time. I mean, he helped me pick steaks, and I had him go show sponsors like, hey, look this is the steak that I picked,
That's cool.
It was so much fun, more fun. But you got to quit having kid after kid after kid before you can get out of that baby stage. We ain't quite figured that one out yet. So.
For the way y'all talking with little ones to bring them to the contest, it really reminds me a lot of like whenever I was growing up and we were always at the hunting club. I mean, it's like every weekend, during hunting season, whatever, we was down at the hunting club and all of us little ones riding 4-wheelers, getting into trouble, but you're in the middle of the woods, you can't get in too much trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we were doing. And it sounds like y'all are using during the SCA at least. Y'all are taking that, and a lot of you younger ones that's having the kids and stuff here are able to do that and feel safe there at the SCA contest.
I don't have any qualms with letting Hollis do his thing there because it's all dudes like us, and then we look out for each other, and we're definitely going to look out for each other's kids for sure.
Yeah,
no worries at all.
Yeah, if you've ever been to a contest with me, you've seen mine running around a parking lot on a bike or a scooter.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I got to tell the story too, Jamie. Last year, his son, he was on a bike, and he kind of outgrown the bike a little bit. And was it Charlotte? It was Charlotte, wasn't it?
Yeah, Charlotte.
So it was at the motorsports area, and Jamie came by. I don't even remember what we were talking about, but he said, man, Cole's got in his head that if he wins kids hot dog, he's getting a new bike. I don't know what he's thinking about. So they got down to first place, and it was Cole. And I yelled across that room. I said, Jamie, you got to buy that boy a new bike now. Sure enough.
We still had to stop on the way home and get it.
Yep. Got him a new bike.
Yeah, he does.
That's the thing, though. Like, if you're at an SCA contest and the Thomases are there, you're going to see Cole riding around on his bike, man, the whole time, having fun. That's the name of the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild.
I keep trying to get Jamie to do a wheelie on his on Cole's bite, but he said no.
No, I'm out.
It's kind of
Not
just
break bones, Bo. We're getting too old for that breaking bones ball game. How many bones you broke, Justin, riding bikes like that?
No, not a whole lot. I got a jacked up pinky finger. As you can see, it don't quite stay straight. Concussions was my thing. I got way too many concussions.
Wow.
And my lower
Yeah.
back. Nowadays, it's like, if I get on one of those behind me, it's just like, nah, dude, you're too old and fat for that now.
That's
It's much
crazy.
easier doing the barbecue thing.
So one of the kind of I'm curious about this, so I'm gonna ask this question. I'm not trying to get secret sauce or whatever, but it kind of explain it because I think as somebody that backyard cook or whatever, do not truly appreciate a process for a steak for a SCA cook. I know I've cooked SCA at barbecue competitions, and I think my highest was 22nd place, and I just was like, whatever. But explain the process as far as like what you go through. Justin said a little bit about this, but kind of go through and give us an idea of what the process is.
For me, as soon as I go pick my steak out, get back to the trailer, I trim it up, tie it up, and I go for my marinade. My marinade's about a 45-minute process. And then after that 45 minutes is up, I'll pat it dry, I'll toothpick it, jacquard it, and then season it and let seasoning set on it for probably about an hour or so before it goes on the grill.
You wet brining.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's pretty wild.
It's a lot more work than what you would do at home, that's for sure.
Yeah.
How many of the rest of y'all are wet brining or dry brining?
Hey, Justin, I'll blow your mind on something. My process is completely backwards from yours.
Oh, boy.
My wet, I do a wet. My wet is no more than 10 minutes, and my rubs sit on no more than about 5 or 10 before I go on the grill.
Woo.
So my steak stays unseasoned, unmarinated until about the last 30 minutes, and everything is done in the last 30 minutes. I cook it and then walk it. Mine doesn't have a long anything.
Wild.
Hold on, let me write that down real quick.
Get my notebook over here. Mine's pretty close to the same. Because I dry brine, and it's only about 8 minutes on each side, and then I'm seasoning and not sitting too long before I grill either. So yeah, I get back and I trim and I wrap, and then it goes in the cooler or the fridge for a good bit of time before. I've just found that I get better texture scores if it's not sitting for a while. And I have to say that DB 180 dry brine it'll eat up some steaks real quick with that papaya extract. You got to be careful with that stuff for sure.
Just a point of note here. The video I'm going to release tomorrow is for a Valentine's Day romantic meal at home that includes a steak. It is not an SCA steak. So what I'm going to do in that video is not going to be anything close to what these guys have gotten. So what they're doing on the show right now, please apologize up front to say I'm not up to that level.
You didn't wrap it in twine?
Hell no. Dude, I took that steak, and it was a good steak. It was ribeye. I got 2 of them. The one I'm dropping tomorrow is a ribeye, and it was a good one. And the other one I've got, so I'm going to go out next week's is Wagyu filet mignon, and it was a great one.
That's pretty
But
good.
both of them, I basically just took my SPG seasoning and salt brine for about 30 minutes to an hour, and then the ribeyes I grilled on the 1250, reverse seared it. I grilled it to 115 degrees. Then I took it out, cranked that bad boy at 500 degrees, put the grill grates in there, and then I get the char marks to it and pulled it off right around 121. The filet mignon, I grilled it on the Rectech 380, and then took it in the cast iron skillet, and then kind of put in the cast iron skillet at the end of it with a butter and rosemary and thyme. It gets that flavor. Now, that is not a SCA cook. I don't know.
I eat those all day, man.
Well, listen, I've not done the SCA cook stuff here, but I mean, a back home person, if you get a cast iron skillet with some Wagyu talos and butter and stuff, and you start seasoning that bad boy, it's hard to beat that back home.
I'll ask these 4 guys. I know beginning of last year, there was a lot of talk of people doing seared steaks. Have y'all seen many people doing that? the rest of the year this year kind of fell off. It felt like.
Yeah, I've not seen any in my area.
I gotta say that's probably the most challenging thing ever is to get that thing completely flat and get a perfect sear on it. I'm good. I'll use my grill grates all day.
Would that probably knock you down in appearance score, you think? You think
It's-
that's where it's going to hit you at?
Probably so.
If you lose 2 points in appearance trying to do a sear, it don't matter how much you gain in taste.
Mhm.
You know, it's real hard to get that sear even and consistent.
Mhm.
Now, for me, when I see one, since I know how hard it is, I'm much more forgiving, you know, when I'm judging than, you know, maybe somebody who doesn't cook. Because honestly, you talk to these guys in the judging class or in the judging tent, and they're asking you, hey, how do you do this? How do you do this? And they don't really know how to do these things. They just know what they like.
Mhm.
You know? And so I think you're taking a big risk. I do think it pays off sometimes if you get a good set of judges. But, you know, I think if you lose 1 or 2 points in appearance, it's hard to recover that with, you know, your flavor score only maybe going up a half a point compared to otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certain parts of the country, pan sear does very well, and there's a lot of teams that pan sear just the bottom of it and grill grate mark the top of it,
Oh
which
wow.
adds flavor to it with that pan sear. But I've seen several pan seared steaks do very well and win competitions. I've seen when they walked by and showed me their steak, I was like, well, that's number one steak when they were walking it in. So it all depends on where you're at in this world, how they score.
I think that's the same with everything that we do. Is stuff's going to be different in every region that you get in. You know, you got to kind of find how you're going to adjust slightly between areas.
That's right.
Y'all talked about that last night. You know, with ribs and getting sweet. The farther you get down in Georgia, the sweeter you're going to get. The farther west you're going to get, you know, the less sweet, more savory you're going to get.
I run the same flavor profile on my barbecue no matter what state I'm in. It's just a matter of adding a little more sweet or more spicy to it. I just cook at the shed. I just cook my southern sweet barbecue that I would compete in Georgia, Florida, or Memphis area, and it done well.
Gene, you travel a lot in different areas. How do you make any adjustments to your state profile?
No, I don't. Going back on the sear thing, it's like a lot of other things. I think when things are successful for people, they don't talk about it a lot. My guess is there's a little more sear going on out there than you know about.
That's right. We're not in the tent judging, that's for sure.
I'll just leave it at that. But I'll tell you, I've run the same profile all year long. I have traveled probably a good bit more than anybody on the call. My furthest comp was in Omaha this year. It was about a little over 12 hours away, and got a fourth place call there with the same profile that won last weekend and has scored. And I think you just got to have a good steak. And we haven't talked about that as much about flavors, and I don't mind sharing, but you know, there are flavors that score well, but they're balanced flavors, and they're flavors that you want on a steak and you expect on a steak. And I'll liken it back to a barbecue class I took where we got into a discussion about what are flavor profiles you expect on barbecue. Well, on steak, you want salt and pepper and garlic and a little bit of onion and maybe a little bit of a spice. But they've got to be equal and balanced where you don't, if you taste a steak and in our world, if you taste one, you go, ooh, that's a little bit salty, or ooh, that's a little bit sweet, or maybe a little bit peppery. If you have that initial thought that there's something out of bounds, you can guarantee a judge is going to get that thought too. Maybe not all of them, but one of them will. And if one of them gets it, they can knock you down. So I guess maybe my tip for a good backyard cook is find a nice balanced flavor and combination. It can be 1, 2, 3 different rubs, and go with that.
So in the KCBS world, which is where I am more familiar with, one of the kind of rule of thumbs is that tenderness is king. If it's not, you got once you learn how to hit the tenderness, then you can take the flavor and you can start tweaking it. Appearance is appearance, so appearance is something you learn as you compete. But would you think, from an SCA perspective, a tenderness is still king, or is it done as king, or what y'all think about that?
It's a hard one.
Doneness and texture.
It used to be. Gene said that last night. It used to be one or two things to do well, but it's so competitive as steak is now. You have to hit all your marks with taste, tenderness, appearance. It all has to be perfect now. None of them stand out more than the other, I don't think.
For me, it's overall impression. I can do
No.
50, 50, 50 all the way across, and then for whatever reason get a 46 on overall impression.
Yeah,
So if
Jason,
I have
different
a
too.
struggle, that's
On
what
the
I
end, they got an overall impression, and that's like, did something leak through? Did it take a few minutes for the heat to kick in on the back end or something like that? And I'll agree with Jamie. That's pretty challenging. And I've had the same thing. I've hit 50s and got a 52 point something on taste, and then a 46 on overall impression. And I'm like, what did you not like about it? Because you liked everything else across there.
Yeah, the overall impression.
I would go with doneness and taste. Those are the two what I'd throw out. I think texture mirrors doneness a little bit and goes to steak selection, and then I think taste and overall tend to kind of go together. If you can get doneness right and you get taste right, you can do a lot of things well.
Cool.
So for somebody that's the backyard cook that is trying to practice for the possibility of cooking SCA or cooking for themselves at home, what would you tell them to focus on from a home to learn? Would you tell them to focus on as one point to try to focus and then move from there to the other points? Doneness.
Mm-hmm. That's something. I mean, it don't matter what your steak is like. Doneness is either on or off. If you get a select steak or a choice steak or a prime steak, your texture, is going to change the way you handle it. Doneness is something, if you can get it down, it's just like I was telling Brianna earlier, because she was practicing. We try to practice once a week, especially leading up to Worlds. She's practicing, and I told her, I said, look, it's not so much about what the temperature is today, because it does change from competition to competition and, how things go. I said, it's about your ability to control hitting what you're trying to hit.
Mm-hmm.
You want your steak to finish at 140. If you go to a comp and you want it to finish at 138, if you know how to control where it lands, then it don't matter what your finish temp is, you can still handle it. And so I think if you can figure out how to get your process going, know how many degrees your steak's going to rise. Typically mine does 3 to 5, depending on the day. And I'll know which one it is based off my practice steak that day. And so, if you can hit that doneness, flavor is so subjective, you can start working on that. But I think doneness is kind of key for that. And it's gotten super complicated too. I know you barbecue guys probably don't see it a lot, but I mean, guys are walking in, and I'm one of them. I got a light app on my phone that's telling me how many Kelvin the light is, and I'm going back to my tent and playing with this light and trying to figure out exactly what it looks like and holding my steak under this specific light based on this Kelvin rating that it's got and all this kind of stuff. And, it's gotten a lot more complicated than it used to be, but, you get that process down, you learn how to hit the number you want to hit. You can go to any comp, and if it's warm lighting, cool lighting, whatever, if you got a number you want to hit and you can hit it, then you're going to be able to put your best foot forward.
Mm-hmm.
I did never understand lighting until I started doing YouTube videos, and I'm finding out that my LED lights outside, when I'm cooking a piece of meat, it's making it blonde. It doesn't matter what it's got; it's taking any of the redness and stuff out of it. So I have to go with a warm light just to bring out the true color of the meat. I bring it inside, it looks perfect. Outside, it looks like it's way overcooked sometimes.
Yeah, and you got to think, if you're aiming for that color, which is going to indicate, whether you got that medium or not. And judging area's dark, or it's really bright, or it all has fluorescence, all of that will change definitely with the same steak that you might turn in the weekend before, the same exact doneness.
That's crazy.
The one thing I would not advise you to do, or do it if it's the right set of friends. I'm very particular about who I let taste practice steaks that I cook, because your friends will lie to you about your food. They just will. That you'll walk away and they'll be like, "Man, that's a great steak." And you go to a contest all puffed out. I got a great steak, and you finish third from last, and the flavor's the worst one out there, and whatever. But yeah, one of the best things you could do. Jamie, did you mention Malcolm's video? Which video did you say at first?
It was Cosmos.
It was Cosmos. Okay.
Yeah.
I like Malcolm's video. Malcolm Reed's got a really good YouTube video on steak SCA. It's probably one of the best ones that I like out there. I'd suggest watching something like that. And then I would suggest finding a good cook at a comp, or a good cook that does comps, and say, "Will you taste this and give me an honest impression?" And not get your feelings hurt when they tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Blake has some great videos.
So I do that occasionally. I'll let someone. Yeah.
Yeah, I put out a couple videos. I mean, I ain't no world champion, but for me, I probably give away a little bit more than some folks will give. The only things I didn't give away in my videos were things that were not original to me. Things that like somebody told me and at a comp, and I wouldn't feel right sharing that, even though it's what I use. I just didn't feel right sharing that as if it was my own. That's the only things that I left out of there.
Fair enough.
And it pretty much is my recipe. I mean, I ain't hiding nothing. My recipe hits and misses too, just like anybody else's. So you can go out there and try it if you want to. But yeah, that, and I watched the Cosmos ones. The Cosmo ones are kind of, I don't think he's put out one recently. Things have changed a lot.
No.
Even Malcolm's, like, that's what I started with. And if you put McCormick's, coarse rub on a steak right now the way he did, I'm not sure it's going to work out quite too well for you at this point. But it was a foundation that people have built off of. Like, I built off those videos, and I think a lot of us on this did. And that's where the barbecue champs comes in. And the best thing you can do is just get some friends, build some friendships with people, and ask for their real opinions, just like Gene was saying. You come to me and ask me my opinion, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. And I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but that's what I would want somebody to do for me. So
that's exactly what I want to. Better to lead down the right path,
Yeah, I think it's an expensive hobby if you get bad information.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, I'd rather you tell me up front, because it makes a big difference. And I will say this right now for everybody watching out here, and they brought up Malcolm Reed, Cosmos Q. Blake's got a YouTube channel. I have no steak SCA cooks on my channel. But what we will say is there's so much more, but KCBS, including this, there's so much more information out here today to come out there and see and learn and practice with, to allow you to come out there and have a foundation. You could start where it took a lot of these guys, myself included, 3 or 4 years to even get to the point where you're on a level that you can truly compete. Now, what it's also done, it's also taken a level of competition we at and raised it up even higher. But just the information's there if you come out there and get started.
Yep.
I'll agree. We picked a crazy.
I got a question to throw out for y'all, just as a fun. Here's a fun one I always love to ask. Because every now and then somebody will make a comment, "Well, I want to go to that comp because so and so signed up," or "I don't want to go to that comp because that person signed up," and that happens to me too. So I got a fun question for the group on here. Who's the one person that you're most scared of when you see signed up for a competition? And I'll answer it. For me, it's John Pendray. That's my who's the one person that you get, you're like, man,
he's at every
for
comp.
me it's yeah.
For me,
Let's throw that one out. That's a fun one.
Jody.
Gene Skillin, Marty Plouffe, John Pendray.
John's a force, man.
Yeah, I feel like anytime I start heading west and I start getting into those kind of, like the Ronalds and the Johns and the Johnny Josephs and the, all these kinds of guys, I don't run into those guys a whole lot. But, that's when I start like, oh, dang, I haven't really competed against them. And then I remember early on looking and seeing my one goal was to beat John Lindsay in the contest. Didn't care about where I placed because I had taken his class and, I had talked with him and, he kind of was one of the guys that helped me early on. And I remember wanting to beat him so bad and he beat me by one place.
Oh.
And I was so frustrated because I was so close to just reaching that goal. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, I mean, if they're out there every weekend, they've got a leg up on me, John, man, John Pendray, he finished in the top 5 cooks points champion for Georgia is what we were able to average and get enough people to kind of, actually be involved. He averaged 9.8 cooks or 9.8 points on his top 5 cooks.
Wow.
And that's just crazy, and a couple of years ago, I think it was probably a year and a half ago, he'd never even had a first place until then. And he's just been knocking it out ever since.
He's the first person I ever saw use a light meter in the judge's room. And I was like, what is he doing? And then I learned and I was like, oh man, he's tough.
It's hard to compete with those guys that do it every weekend.
Yeah. And I'll tell you somebody too that really came out of actually 2 people, Terry and Stephanie West this year tore it up. And I almost every SCA comp that I did last season, and I say, last year, I ended up right beside them because, I'm 270 family. I use a 270 on barbecue cooks, but I was just like, man, maybe I can pick up some mojo, but damn, Stephanie's going to beat all of us, because she's just a stupendous cook. And it's so funny too, seeing their differences. Like Terry's like the first person to turn in. I mean, he's already got his dishes done and everything. And Stephanie ain't even started her cook yet. And then, Terry's like, Steph, you got to go. You got 2 minutes left, and she's on her second flip. It's like, man, y'all are so opposite of each other.
Yeah, here's what I will say though, because I know you guys really care about this reaching kind of the new cook. I'm not world class cook, but there ain't a whole lot of people I haven't beat in some form or fashion. Like if I get 4th place and you got 12th place, well, guess what? I beat you this weekend. That's just the way this world is. It's a lot harder to do that on the barbecue side, but it's always goes back to that, barbecue is more like boxing, steak is more like MMA, right? That one roundhouse kick could knock you out. And, it's any man's game that puts up a good piece of meat that day. You get all your points. There ain't anybody else that has a secret mojo that you can't have access to.
Yep, that's true.
It ain't like cooking,
So if we're going to use Blake's analogy there, then who's the one you want to take into a bar fight? I think I'd take John Pendray and John Green if I was in a bar fight, if we're going to talk MMA and boxing here.
Yeah.
I think that's a good question, even from a KCBS standpoint. But I have no knowledge of the SCA, so I couldn't. Nobody would really worry me if I'd be too ignorant about any of them was there. But in competition, I've never really been turned off by the level of the field competition wise, because that's just never really crossed my mind. Like, well, that's probably not true. I know Waxhaw and Rocky Mount. Waxhaw was a contest. We loved the town and we loved the people there, and everybody else was at Rocky Mount, so we would go to Waxhaw. And it wasn't necessarily that we didn't want to go cook that contest against them. We just wanted to go to a contest and just see how our flavor would compare to a different group of people. Because I mean, and we've said this on the East Coast, and y'all probably go through the same thing on SCA. We go contests, usually one contest up and down the East Coast, and it's like we get in a boxing match in a phone booth because it's just we can't get out of that same group and find out how do we compete against this other side. And I think this year's gonna be a little bit different. Because I think it's South Carolina don't have a whole lot of competitions on this KCBS, so I think a lot of us going to do a few more in Georgia and stuff. So I'd be curious to see what happens. But I know same process. But I do think the guys start chasing points. They look at it a lot differently. And chasing points, I think they start saying that, all right, this guy's going to this contest. This contest is another 45 minutes, and this guy's not there. So I'm going to go here and see if I can get points, win, yada, yada, yada. That's for KCBS. I don't know how it works for SCA, but I'm assuming it's pretty much the same thing.
Probably, and I don't know because just saying from what I'd see from the outside, it's a much harder grind because you got to do a lot more contests. Just because the stretch is really broad. I mean, you're going January all the way to December, and that top 10's changing throughout the year, and you've really got to be hitting so many contests. Guys, what do you think? Like, how many those top 5 cooks for the year in points? They're looking at 40 plus, 50 plus contests.
Way more than that.
Yeah.
That's just nuts. Well, you got to think too. There's a lot of doubles involved in that too, but that's a lot of traveling. I'd love to see the miles that they're putting on.
In order to win points, you got to be hitting Friday every time you can, and hitting doubles on Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah. I think what Blake just said hits mostly. I don't know that many of the elite that are doing 100 plus a year, and that's entries, not comps, right? They're looking to maximize a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can score more points from 5 comps than you can from 2.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking to go places where they can stack some of those together. And I think if a promoter is wise that's wanting to do a new contest, they're going to add on the day before, the day after to try to promote their contest in conjunction with to help pull people in, and they'll pull some elite folks.
Yep. That's why Jamie and I hit up Kingsport each year. I mean, that's the Tennessee triple, Friday night, double Saturday.
Yeah.
That's a good opportunity for somebody that's gathering points.
I know this past
Shannon's
year,
got a great story about that contest this year.
Which one?
Especially Friday night.
Kingsport.
That was leaving Jody's Friday night, going down to Kingsport Saturday at the.
There's an interesting Waffle House in between that and Johnson City. That's quite an amazing place to be. Me and Gene had a quite experience that night.
I can't even imagine. Good Lord. That's a fun part of the country. And I say fun in quotation marks.
Just throw all the stereotypes in there, and they were all involved.
Late night Waffle House in Tennessee.
It was the best show for an hour and a half at the Waffle House I've had in a long time. We talk about it daily, me and Gene does, about that event.
Eastern Tennessee, even to be more specific.
Yeah.
That's wild. But listen, guys, we appreciate y'all being on the show. Y'all got any sponsors everybody want to give a shout out to? I see a couple Royal Oak shirts and B&B over here. Anybody got Jamie, you want to talk about your sponsors you got?
Yeah, we got Royal Oak. We got back with them. This is our 3rd year with them, and Cosmos Q. We've been with them since the beginning, and DB180.
Blake, how about you?
My number one sponsor is Hound Hogs Barbecue Supply. I am their number one customer. I take the most product off their shelf of anybody. But Hasty Bake's been good to us. Royal Oak, really proud to be a part of that team. And we've been teamed up with the Arcasipi guys, all queued up and hotty toddy since before this barbecue supply store was a thing. I don't even ask a whole lot from them. I just like being a part of the team and the camaraderie. Still use their stuff on all my steaks, and so. But I like to stretch out my brands too. I got a little bit of everybody's stuff mixing in here. So
that was cool to see Ronald this weekend too.
Yeah, that's first comp for him ever in Georgia.
Yeah, I was real surprised. I spoke to him for a minute, and I was like, "You been out on this side of the country too much?" He's like, "Not too much, man."
Too
I
much.
said, "Cool. We're glad to have you."
Shannon, about you?
Fogo's been our Char-Cole sponsor for a couple of years now, and we have Wickers, Jonesy Q, Twisted Steel, Johnny Joseph, Mr. Pendray, Moo Magic, Flaps 20 Rubs. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of them. There's a whole list, and I apologize for ones I did miss. But do I?
Christy.
Yeah,
Yes,
Christy there with you.
Christy can
rattle
write
off you.
all of them, and she's
Yep.
great at it. I'm a barbecue guy, so we just go up there, get a trophy, and sit back down. She knows every one of her sponsors during
I
the
heard
state.
you say them so many times the other day. I ought to know them by now.
Yeah, for real. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to hold up cue cards for me now.
Yep, for sure.
Cool. Gene, about you?
Yeah, here's my sponsor.
Bank of America, right? Chase.
That's my sponsor right there. You know what? I have not really sought out a lot. I buy everything I use. Matt Overson's been good to send me Wicked Pig when I need some, and we kind of tested that out early on. And when Jeff Jacobson was developing out the Midwest Dust, we got a lot of that to try. And Boar's Night Out is sending over a few little trial things that they're experimenting with that'll hopefully be out. So, I'll tinker with some of that just a little bit, but for the most part, I buy what I need at Ace Hardware and had a little local barbecue store close to the house in Jacksonville. But yeah, my Ace here in town sells everything I use, and
That's cool.
I buy everything from them.
Inconvenient.
That's pretty
So-
cool. Good Ace Hardware.
Yep.
Justin, when you got another podcast coming out?
I've had you on the list for the next guest for a little while. I actually did just sit down and make a schedule. So I think Mr. Jason Hardy with the Elite Barbecue Smokers is going to be our next one. And I'm actually going to do an SCA judges one with 3 currently unnamed judges, but I think that'll be cool. And then we're going to do a KCBS judges podcast as well. With 3 KCBS judges, which I think will be insightful, and we'll get to hear some stuff that we don't get to, hear as competitors a lot from the other side of the table. But yeah, I'm getting back on that. Sorry, everybody. I know you've been waiting. That's why I told everybody I'm not going to do a monthly podcast because I'm going to miss a month here and there. It's going to happen. And then I missed like 3 months. So we're on it. But sponsors-wise, I'm also DB180. Will's helped Jamie and I out a whole bunch. Really cool guy to support. I will tell a funny story if I can for a second. I drug my feet on picking up one of the RV spots at the reserved area at the Worlds. And I think it was a Sunday night. I did not have my wallet with me, and I was up in Hollis's room. He was asleep. And they had one spot left. And I said, man, I really need to go and get that, but I'll just pick it up in the morning. Because it's Sunday night. Ain't nobody had picked up a spot for like 3 weeks. The next morning I woke up and I got my wallet and I went and it was full. And I was like, no, I missed my RV spot. Who got it? And I went and looked and it was Will Collier. And he had gotten the last spot. And I was like, damn you, man. Now I'm going to have to go to the yellow lot and walk all the way up there with my tent each night. So, but thank you to Will. Thanks to Riley and her family, State Princess. We got picked up again from them this year. Love being part of their team and their family. Super fun to see them this weekend and see all the calls that they got. Riley won chili, which is rad. And then local honey sponsor, Herb's Honey, who used to compete and has been giving me $100 bills when I see him for gas money, which is the best sponsor you can have. Not quite a full tank with the diesel, but pretty close to it.
It is that. Well, listen, we got some good sponsors: Royal Oak, Atlanta Barbecue Store, and Rec Tech. So we've been blessed to have that, and we greatly appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. It's been a great show, a lot of good information. We're going to have a new show next weekend on Tuesdays. Check it out. Again, thank y'all for being on here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for coming on.